Hi, this is Estates and Trusts online module about termination of trusts or ending them, and I am Professor Donna Byrne. For this portion, and these objectives go for 10A and 10B, we will identify trust purposes and explain the significance of the trust purpose in terminating a trust. We'll describe the Claflin doctrine and apply it where it's appropriate. We'll explain the doctrine of equitable deviation and identify circumstances in which trust terms could be modified. Okay, let's do some review. We haven't talked about trusts for a while. Remember, trusts needed we needed an intent to create a trust, and the whole idea of a trust is to separate the legal and equitable title, and that means that we need some property to have title to. We need a trustee to hold the legal title, and we need beneficiaries. A trust also needs a purpose, although we haven't really focused on that yet. Beneficiaries, we've seen, have to be definite or in being, and some things that we've seen are not in being are issue when there are none yet, a widow if someone is still alive, and heirs, since we don't have heirs until we die. In each case, those labels could refer to people who aren't born yet. Okay, we also saw a variety of types of trusts. Mandatory trusts, where trustee had to pay everything. Discretionary trusts, where the trustee had some discretion. Support trusts, where the trustee appears to have discretion but really is bound by some standards such as support or need or emergency. And trusts can have multiple features, so part of it could be a support trust and part could be a mandatory trust. Suggestion when you make your outlines for this class, include the relevant language from the trust. Okay, so remember Shelley versus Shelley. Here's the language from Shelley versus Shelley. In case of any emergency arising whereby unusual and extraordinary expenses are necessary for the proper support and care of my said son or said children. So that particular language was important in determining what the trustee had to do. Just a suggestion. Okay, when does a trust end? When does it terminate? What does that mean? Not fired, obviously. Termination of a trust means that it stops existing. That means the trustee no longer has a job, and some beneficiary gets title to whatever it was that the trust owned, because there is no more trust. It means the trustee must distribute all of the trust property or funds. So when there's a point in which in the instructions that say that the trustee has to distribute everything, that's the end. Now, when is this? Well, when the trust document says to terminate, all right, distribute the trust principal to B, remainder to B. That means the trust exists until A dies, and then it terminates and the trustee pays everything to B. According to the trust terms, the trust document might specify that it ends, or it may be implied through the fact that somebody gets all the money. Or if the trust does not own something, and this is part of this, there can be no separation of title. So if we've paid everything, then we don't have separation of title and we don't have a trust. If the settlor revokes the trust, okay, if this is an inter vivos trust and it's revocable, the settlor could revoke it. That would end it. If the trust is an inter vivos trust and it's not revocable, but the settlor is alive and all the beneficiaries and the settlor agree, then the trust can be terminated, even if it's not revocable. So far, these things should just make sense. All right, if you set it up and you left it revocable, you can revoke it. Yeah, fine. But what do you do if you have a dead settlor? Settlor is not around to agree and not around to revoke if it had been revocable during life. Can the beneficiaries take care of things on their own? This is what's going on in the Claflin case, and we should take a look at that. Okay, first of all, describe the trust. I think this is at page 445 or 6. Describe the trust. This was created by the will of Wilbur Fisk Claflin, and the part that we care about left money for Adelbert E. Claflin and said that he would get $10,000 when he is of the age of 21 years, $10,000 when he is of the age of 25 years, and the balance when he is of the age of 30 years. Okay, so sketch this out the way we're used to seeing them. $10,000 when he reaches age 21, $10,000 when he's 25, and the balance when he's 30. Okay, is Adelbert's interest vested, since we've recently talked about that? Each part, well, he's born and ascertainable, and there are no contingencies. So all the parts of this are vested. They just don't get paid yet. When will the trust terminate according to its terms? Well, pretty clearly, when Adelbert turns 30, trustee has to distribute everything to him. But he wants the money now. Now, some more background. Adelbert was born in 1866. He was the youngest of three. His older brother Clarence is also mentioned in the case. And there was a second brother who died earlier as a teenager. When Adelbert's father died and this trust began, Adelbert was 19. And if you notice this timeline, things went pretty quickly for Wilbur there. He executed the trust. About a week later, he executed a codicil. And then just a couple weeks later after that, he died. Anyway, that original trust, or the original will, this is a testamentary trust, gave Adelbert's share of the residue to him outright. It was the codicil that added this payout plan. All right, so he's already turned 21 by the time he brings this suit, and so he got his first $10,000, and now he wants the rest. It's worth noting that he also got income from another big chunk of money under the will, and he'd received the $10,000, so he had money, or he had money, and so the question is, why did he need more? Well, it turns out he was about to get married. He married a woman named Kate Green between 1880 and 88 and 1890, and they had a son. Let me get out of here. William, who was actually born in Minnesota. I have no idea why. But by the time William was 14, Adelbert was not apparently doing so well, and he gets locked up for not taking care of his son. And it's his own niece who had been taking care of William, and who wanted the court to lock him up. Okay, another side note about the family. Adelbert's uncle William was the governor of Massachusetts. I think was also a U.S. representative. And he and his father his father was a co-founder of Boston University. And the two of them also gave money to establish Claflin University in South Carolina. And Adelbert's mother and aunt would attend parlor meetings to discuss how to help young women go to college, those who were mature enough and bold enough to do so. Okay, but back to the case. It seems like Wilbur must have had his reasons for spreading out the payments, since he wrote the will and then amended it almost immediately. So, back to the question. If Adelbert is the only beneficiary of this trust, can we terminate the trust early? Well, the court says, here's the rule. If it's a dry trust, you can terminate it early. If the purpose of the trust has been accomplished, or when there's no good reason shown why the trust should continue, and all the beneficiaries are there and agree. Well, how about our case? Is it a dry trust? Not at all. Plenty of money here. If the purpose has been accomplished, okay, well, that means we need to know what the purpose is. So here's the intersection of trust purpose and trust termination. We can terminate a trust if its purpose has been accomplished. Well, what was Wilbur's purpose? Why did he spread the payments in this way? Well, court says that's a purpose. Spreading payments is a purpose. or payments to one person over time. Now make that distinction. We're talking about payments to one person. It's kind of like setting up a trust to make payments to support someone. That means we're going to trickle out the money only as needed, not on a specific schedule like this, but nevertheless evidencing a purpose to spread the money for that one person. Oh, there we go. Okay, contrast. Making payments for life and then paying to someone else. In other words, income to A, remainder to B. That's not a purpose. Not a purpose. It's just dividing property in time, and if the beneficiaries agree, we can terminate the trust early. So Claflin is based on this material purpose doctrine, that if the trust has a material purpose that has not been achieved, we cannot terminate it early. You can think of that as the Claflin doctrine or as the material purpose doctrine. The rule is, if there is a material purpose that's not been achieved, we can terminate the trust early. So think about it. Was this the right result? Would you have ruled the same way for Adalbert? Of course, judges who actually see the parties know more than we do about them. And that's the end of 10A-1. The next module, 10A2, looks at the problems in your book, and so this is just a gratuitous sloth to mark the end point. Thanks for watching.